Hey, Josh Johnson here. Storms are on the way to Alabama this weekend, and at face value, it's a really concerning setup. But a deeper dive into the data shows us why this setup is a little less dangerous looking, anyway, right? We're still watching it. We know better than to ever turn our back on a storm system in February, but this does not have the appearance of a major severe weather setup for us here in Alabama, and there's a very specific reason as to why that is. But before we get into that, let's just begin this update. You are watching on February the 11th, 2026. I'm Josh Johnson. So, warm is the word. Look at this. Temperatures today, we are in the 70s across a big chunk of the state. This is data off of the RRFS model. But look by 2 in the afternoon. By the time a lot of you are even watching this, we're dropping into the 50s and even some upper 40s across North Alabama. A cold front is pushing through the state as we speak, and we will see a slight but noticeable cool down tonight and tomorrow as a result of that cold front. I'm talking temperatures, overnight lows tonight drop down into the 40s. It's not totally out of the question. Some of the colder pockets up in Chambers, Tallapoosa, northern Lee could make it. Coosa could make it into the upper 30s by sunrise on Thursday, February 12th. But this is a slight cool down, right? Afternoon highs on Thursday make it back up into the mid to upper 60s in the central counties, low 70s along the Florida border. So for the southern half of the state, is it noticeable? Sure, but we're going from 75 to 65. This is not exactly an Arctic invasion. So then what happens from a rain chance perspective? Here's the national map off of this morning's hot off the press European computer model. And you see what I see here. It's dry, right? This is tonight into tomorrow. Red lines mean warm air. And that's what we're dealing with, right? Okay, fast forward to Friday. You'll notice not much rain Friday. That was an adjustment that Amanda Curran made yesterday in the forecast, was to lower that rain chance pretty well on Friday. There's Friday night at 9 o'clock. If you have we'll call it Valentine's Eve plans. How about that? If you have Valentine's Eve plans Friday night, you don't need to be terribly worried about the weather. There's really only a small chance of a passing sprinkle. Even that seems like not a huge deal. Okay, then we get to Saturday. Notice this is 3 in the afternoon. Most of the rain is still west of Alabama. Back here, you've got a developing area of low pressure over Oklahoma City. Warm front moving north. And again, at face value, you look at this and you go, uh-oh. Then by Sunday at 3 a.m., there's a surface low over the Mississippi Delta. And there's a trailing line or two of thunderstorms. But not all is what it seems with this setup. There's a couple of factors here at play. One, the waters over the eastern Gulf are still cold. Remember the big Arctic invasion a couple of weeks ago? That knocked those water temperatures down quite a bit. They're cooler than normal, again, in the eastern Gulf. Central and western Gulf is actually warmer than normal because the core of the cold went into Florida. But that's the air that would try to be advecting or moving north into Alabama out ahead of this system. Other thing that helps is it's the middle of the night. This is 3 o'clock Sunday morning. So rain, yes. Thunderstorms, probably. Severe weather, probably not. And the temperature data on this really kind of tells the story. Let me show you that. Again, this is all off the European computer, but I think it has, generally speaking, the right idea. We'll zoom in for a little closer analysis here of the numbers across the state of Alabama anyway, right? Again, see follow the wind barbs here. The cooler water over the northeastern Gulf is where the wind will be blowing in from Alabama. That means the air temperature for us in this sort of setup, it's really not that warm, right? To fuel severe thunderstorms, you typically would want to see, at the very minimum, mid to upper 60s. And we just don't have that. This is, again, European data. Mid 50s along the Georgia border, low 60s back into West Alabama. Now, as you get the sun up on Sunday, you do warm up a bit. But remember, this is now noon Sunday, and a lot of the storms are kind of passing us by. We'll go back to the precipitation map. This is, again, noon. By this point, the front is actually kind of passing by. The air behind this front, by the way, is of a cool but not cold Pacific origin. This is not a cold front per se. There's really not a cool down of any sort of significance behind this. This will just be kind of your run-of-the-mill shot of highs in the 60s, lows in the 40s and 50s kind of thing behind this. And even that doesn't last. We spike back up pretty quick back into the 70s pretty quickly. So the lack of available warm air surging north really makes me think that the severe weather risk in this is minimal. And another way we look at that is the what's called the CAPE, Convective available potential energy, I like mixed layer, Kate. And it is minimal, right? And a lot of it is after the storms have already moved through. Remember, this is 3 a.m., 6 a.m., 9 a.m. That's when the storms are moving through. By noon and beyond, when there's a little instability, the front's already passed. And the way you can tell that is to look at the forecast sounding off the Euro. Sure, there's some cape because it's gotten warm, but look, the air is drying out. The dew point's down to 59. The wind field is unidirectional here. It's all a westerly flow, and the wind fields have weakened considerably. I mean, to get to 50 knots, you have to go above 300 millibars, which is a long way up. So the wind speeds from the cloud level to the ground have dropped by this point in time, and they're all blowing from the same direction. There's not a lot of that turning with height that you would see with a more classic severe weather threat. So bottom line, look, we're not going to turn our backs on it, but my suspicion is any severe weather threat that materialized would likely be over coastal Texas, coastal Louisiana, coastal along the coast, right? Along and south of I-10 for the most part, would be my hunch on that. What happens after that? Well, let me show you quickly here. Essentially, the long story short is a very lengthy period of warmer than normal temperatures. There's really no evidence of a major shot of cold. Now, I would caution you, right? We are almost always good for a cold snap sometime in March, right? This is not going to last forever. But look, the raw data off the European, you've got the little miniature cool down tonight, tomorrow, highs in the 60s. We go back into the 70s for the weekend. Again, that little shot of Pacific air drops lows back into the 40s Monday, Tuesday, but highs are in the upper 60s and low 70s. And we can even hit 80 degrees late next week. Again, this is all raw data off the operational Euro. But the ensembles are singing the same song. Remember, when we talk about this, the individual run, what's called the operational run, that is a solo singer. You will hear more details, but sometimes those details are prone to missed notes, forgotten lyrics, right? Keeping the singer analogy there. The ensembles are the choir. We're taking all these models and blending them together, all these different runs of this model and blending them together. That gives us, you're not going to hear as many details, but if there's a mistake, you're not going to hear that either. So the smoothing out of it sort of helps us determine what's noise and what's not. The red line that you see on the graphic here, that is the normal temperature for the time of year. And notice we're camped out above that, if the Euro ensemble is correct, through February 25th. And in the long-range data I'm seeing, I don't see anything that makes me think otherwise. I think we are warm through at least the middle of the last week of February. So I think an additional 10 to 14 days of warm weather is in the cards here. And we don't see a lot of rain or storm chance in that mix as well. This is back to the operational run of the Euro. You've got the weekend storm with about a half inch to an inch, and then you've got a little blip in the data out towards the 20th of the month. Drought will worsen. That's the one trade-off to all of this is the drought's going to worsen. Long range from the CPC, the Climate Prediction Center, suggesting a large area of a large likelihood that most of the eastern two-thirds of the country is warmer than normal. This goes out days 6 through 10. Here's days 8 through 14. It doesn't change much, right? So the screaming message in the long range is warm air. Now, you always have to be concerned about when you're talking 70s and 80s in February, okay, when is it going to storm? There will be some thunderstorms this weekend, but the lack of warm air return off the Gulf will likely spell just kind of garden variety heavy rain and thunderstorms. There's no signal right now for any overwhelming severe weather threat. Could that change? Sure, yeah, but that's the way that it all kind of crumbles right now is in that way. So we'll head over to the comments quickly. I'm streaming this live on both Facebook and YouTube. As always, I appreciate you for hanging out for these little updates. I always enjoy doing them. Mardi Gras parades happening this Saturday. Okay, let me give you kind of some. Bottom line is, I think most of Saturday is dry. The majority of the computer models we look at are suggestive of a dry day on Saturday. So let's go back in time here. This is Saturday at 9 a.m. Here's noon. Now, look, you see the little flash or two of green there. There's enough advection, enough warm, moist air lifting northward to where you will have probably a sprinkle or a shower or two in the morning to around lunchtime. And then most of the afternoon is dry, and then maybe some spotty showers around sunset. It is not cancel your plans rain by any stretch of the imagination. Again, this is data off the Euro. We're still out a little too far to dive into most of the higher resolution modeling. We can get to 6 p.m. on the RRFS, which is one of our better ones. So it's suggestive of the same thing. Outside chance of a sprinkle or two Saturday. Here's 8 a.m., 9 a.m., 10, 11, noon. And you see what I see. If you're curious, Montgomery sits right where that, I'll put the black bar over Montgomery. The majority of the rain is still well back to the southwest by sunset on Saturday night. And I think it's really after about 10 p.m. Saturday that you start to see a higher rain chance. And then the majority of the rain will likely fall as the calendar goes on Sunday, right? A lot of it could be in the morning, but I think it will be Sunday before we get into a lot of the rain. So if you have outdoor plans, Mardi Gras plans, fishing plans, golf plans, whatever plans for this Saturday, they look good. For this Sunday, they look wet. Let's talk amounts here real quick, and we'll have to go back to the euro for that because, again, the RRFS isn't out quite far enough to really help us much with that. Let's use the euro ensemble, or the euro AI ensemble. It scores pretty well. So what I want is the total mean. So we're averaging together a lot of models here when we look at this, but I think this is right on the money. A half inch to an inch of rain for most spots. Now, there are some pieces of data showing quite a bit more rain than that, and I don't buy it. First off, when in a drought, predict a drought. My experience tells me when you're in a drought, take model rainfall amounts and reduce them by a third to a half. Simply because there's a reason you're in a drought, right? Also, the ground is dry. In Alabama, a lot of our moisture actually comes to us from the ground via a process called evapotranspiration. When the ground is dry, that process gets short-circuited, and the only supply of moisture you have is the Gulf. Remember, it's cooler than normal. So I don't know that there's quite as much water vapor availability as the model would indicate. So my suspicion is, for most of you, 1/2 to 1 inch of rain that falls late Saturday night into Sunday. It will have some thunder along for the ride, but I don't see a major severe weather risk. I don't buy the 2-3 inch rainfall totals I've seen posted on social media. I think that's bogus. Underneath the heaviest storm, could you get up to an inch, inch and a half? Sure, but that'll be the exception rather than the rule. For most of you, it's a half inch to an inch of rain. We'll get a new drought map tomorrow, by the way. I'll share that. The one that was released last Thursday, remember the data cutoff time on those drought maps is Tuesday morning. So a lot of the rain that we had last week didn't show up on the map. That said, we didn't have much rain. So I doubt we will see major changes to the drought map. I don't think it will get worse with a new update tomorrow, but I'm not sure it's going to get much better either. So, hey, Vernon, what's up, man? Our man Vernon Turner popping in the YouTube comments, giving me a little shout out there. Good to hear from you, buddy. Hope you're doing well. Life's treating you great. Vernon, now a proud papa up in North Carolina, living his best life, working a great job, good family. I mean, I love it when great things happen to great humans, and Vernon is a prime example of that. So, bottom line for your Mardi Gras plans, for your outdoor plans, Saturday, a winter, right? Can't rule out a rogue sprinkle or shower, but it won't last long and it won't be that heavy. Sunday's probably a different story with heavier bouts of rain in that mix. So there you have it. Let's see here. We got logo fights going on up at the top of the screen. I redesigned some stuff on this little, on my system I used to do these lives, and I left the wrong logos up. So my apologies on that. But overall, I think you get the message. So, a little cooler tonight and tomorrow. Don't let it catch you off guard. Lows drop into the low 40s tonight, tomorrow night, highs in the 60s. Then a big, nice warm up for Saturday, Sunday. We dealt with heavy rain and storms late Saturday night, probably after midnight, on into Sunday. Those clear out, and then most of next week just looks warm and dry. Highs in the 70s, lows in the 50s for the most part. Next week, warmer than normal weather is the headline and the screaming message for at least the next 7 days. And some of that long-range data I showed you a moment ago suggesting it could go out even farther in time than that, right? We could be looking at, I think, 14-plus days of additional warm air to go on top of what we've already had. So that'll make this seem like a pretty warm winter, right? Because we all have short memories. That's the way it goes. All right, I'll do an update tonight, obviously. We've got an update for you on WSFA 12 News at 5, 6, and 10. You can check that out wherever you watch TV, right? If you stream WSFA, the family of apps there. If you have Apple TV, Roku, Amazon, just go wherever you go to find apps and search WSFA. And you can stream those newscasts there live. I'll do a weather extra update on the WSFA app tonight at 5:30. It's similar to these in some ways, but